Are cuttlefish able to remember a previously encountered item if they saw or smelled it?
First of all, what actually is a cuttlefish? And why are we asking this question in the first place? The cuttlefish is also known by its scientific name, Sepia officinalis. It belongs to the group of colloid cephalopod mollusks, which is made up of animals like squids and octopuses. These guys are both soft-bodied and shellless. Cuttlefish are known to be active predators that make ample use of both visual and olfactory cues to accomplish defensive behaviors, foraging, and inter-individual communication. Much like octopuses and squids, cuttlefish are able to use camouflaging to hide in their surroundings from predators and to ambush their prey, but they also use chemical cues to perceive their environment and communicate with the most sexually available partner. Aside from using their chemical cues to catch a date, cuttlefish are known to possess a centralized nervous system, and they show advanced cognitive abilities that are believed to have evolved independently from vertebrates. By using these advanced cognitive abilities to remember what they ate, how long ago they ate, and where they ate, cuttlefish are able to use that information to adapt their foraging behavior according to the time and place where food sources are readily and easily available to them. So, knowing this, scientists then wondered if these cuttlefish could remember their food based on just one thing, sight or smell. Because the known origin of a memory is remembered through retrieval of specific features of an item through perception and sensation, would cuttlefish be able to identify an item they've encountered before with only one of their perceptive senses? Well, recent research suggests that cuttlefish can indeed discriminate between the two sensory modalities of sight and smell. In this study, conducted by the journal Scientific Reports, a group of researchers carried out experiments on subadult European common cuttlefish, ranging in age from 3 to 6 months in the beginning of experiment number 1 and from 9 to 12 months at the beginning of experiment number 2. Disclaimer: out of those cuttlefish used in the first experiment, 5 of 6 of the cuttlefish in the second experiment were reused from the first. While the experiments were conducted, the cuttlefish were housed in individual gray plastic tanks, which were filled with natural circulating seawater, and they had their environment controlled via artificial lighting conditions. The brave subjects were also given a hearty seafood platter of crab and shrimp before they began their hard work for science. As another disclaimer, sadly, one of the cuttlefish participants had to be removed before completing the final test due to exhibiting strange swimming behavior. At the beginning of each trial, no matter the experimental condition, a glass tube that was above the water, with or without the visual stimulus, was first placed into the tank. Then, a beaker of seawater, with or without an additional olfactory stimulus, was poured into the tank, and 3 panels were placed along one of the tank's walls with different visual stimuli behind them. If the cuttlefish came closer than 10 centimeters in front of the correct visual cue on the first try, according to the experimental condition, this was considered correct. All cuttlefish were trained until they were able to choose correctly at least 8 out of 10 times in consecutive trials. Let's dive further into the specifics of what these experiments actually entailed. In Experiment 1, cuttlefish were randomly tested in 3 conditions, using the presentation of a visual crab stimulus, an olfactory crab stimulus, and a control stimulus with nothing. The cuttlefish were considered properly trained when they chose the correct stimulus panel 8 out of 10 times consecutively. For Experiment 1, the cuttlefish took an average of about 56 trials to accomplish this. After the cuttlefish achieved this criteria, they were given a delay test in 1 and 3 hour intervals and then placed in the tank with no control condition panel to test their ability to retrieve whether they had smelt or seen the crab previously. The results of Experiment 1 showed that all cuttlefish tested chose the correct panel according to the stimulus they were presented with 1 hour before. After a 3 hour delay, not all, but most of the cuttlefish were able to choose correctly when a crab had been presented before. The cuttlefish were not able to do this with a novel stimulus when it was presented after a transfer delay. In the second experiment, cuttlefish were trained in the same way as in the first experiment to retrieve the modality of the presentation of fish, shrimp, and crabs. After they were trained, the cuttlefish performed the same task with another stimulus that they had never encountered before: mussel. The cuttlefish successfully passed transfer tests with and without 3 hour delays. The results of this experiment showed that 5 out of 5 of the cuttlefish tested were able to choose the correct panel that was associated with the presentation of the new stimulus after the 3-hour delay. Overall, this study is one of the first to show the ability to discriminate between sight and smell in an animal, especially in invertebrates. Taken together, the results of these 2 experiments suggest that cuttlefish can retrieve perceptual features of a previous event, namely whether they had seen or smelled a specific stimulus. This study provides the first evidence of episodic-like memory in an invertebrate. Cuttlefish are able to learn and employ a discrimination rule based on different sensory modalities. Thank you.